JJ Safer here. I'm with Insight, and I'm the practice development manager for Palo Alto Networks here. So I'm essentially kind of the Palo practice manager, and everything for the most part falls on with me. And we've got a special guest here from Palo, which I'll introduce in just a second. But again, the topic of today is SASE for Zero Trust, and this is a super hot topic for us right now. And so the whole purpose of this is really to kind of go into and answer a little bit about exactly what is Zero Trust and what is SASE. And what is it that our customers, both Insight and Palo, what are their concerns, questions, use cases, all of that, so we can try to kind of clear up some of the confusion and answer any of the questions. So again, that's me, JJ Safer. And Tudor, would you like to intro?
Sure, thanks, JJ. Tudor Andreescu here. I'm part of the product management team in Palo Alto Networks, dealing with Prisma SASE, right, our SASE offering. And yeah, looking forward for this discussion and trying to maybe remove some of the marketing fuzz, right, and talk about real use cases, real issues that we're solving with SASE and enabling customers doing a true zero trust, as we like to call it.
Excellent. Let me get to. So real quick, I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time on this, but it is extremely important because quite often this comes across and a lot of people don't understand exactly who Insight is. So most importantly is Insight has been around since the 80s. So we've been around an extremely long time. We're global in presence and reach. So, and we're about 12,000 strong, with nearly half of those being in the technical space. So, and another thing that makes us extremely, in my opinion, unique is nearly a third, of those resources are actually in cloud architecture, as well as DevOps and DevSecOps. So it's a really unique field, and it adds a tremendous amount of expertise to our practice, and then obviously the skill sets and solutions that we can deliver to our customers. So again, if anybody wants to, this is all being recorded, and you can go back to any of these slides. But just know, we're global. We're another slide here talks about just briefly about our Palo relationship. Very, very tight with Palo. They are one of our number one, if not the number one, security solution provider for us at Insight. So we've got a huge focus with Palo, big practice, lots of resources dedicated to this. And we actually sell, support, implement everything for all of Palo solutions in the entire portfolio. So if you're familiar with Palo being a firewall company, that was yesterday's news. There's a tremendous amount of other solutions. If you're not familiar with them, please reach out. It goes all the way from endpoint to what we're going to talk about today, to even cloud security in those at those cloud service provider environments. So whole lot of stuff going on with Palo. If you're not familiar with it, please reach out to us. But again, today's topic is going to be about Zero Trust and SASE. One other little piece about us is, just a little bit on the service side. Consultating, professional services. Most importantly, is we provide support service. So we're an authorized support center. For Palo, we can handle all those tier 1, 2 tier calls. For you. Palo just being one of them. We've got tons of vendors in our list. And it's called our one call service, but that is part of, that group is part of the Palo Authorized Support Center, ASC group. So, we're authorized. All kinds of certs, all kinds of authorizations. We can do it all with Palo. That's the point of this little spiel today in the first part of this of the presentation. So the format for this is really, I wanted to kind of keep it open. So, if the questions come in, please come in and ask them. It's super casual, this. We're going to keep it high level, and what we really want to talk to today is really just going to clear up the confusion, understanding ZTNA, SASE, the actual solutions that make those up from Palo, and then go into a lot of the, the customer questions and use cases, because I think that helps clear up a lot of this, not just what is it all, but more importantly, what is it, why are customers, why are they looking at it? And what are some of the questions that are coming to us, where the answer is SASE, even if the customer didn't even know it. So that's, I think, is going to be really helpful for a lot of customers, just understanding, what's going on in the market, what do all these terms mean to you, in your individual jobs or to your security program, the maturity levels of that, and, how are people in other companies, peers or not, how are they adopting these solutions to, increase their security posture inside their environments? And whoops, went a little too far. So, again, we're just going to go there, and let's talk about just what is zero trust.
Yep. The first, thanks for the overview, and great to see this partnership, and happy to build on top of it further, right? So to your question, right, it's a very trendy word, right? Lots of vendors talk about zero trust, right? So I guess this is a really good chance to maybe dig deeper, right, and talk about, at least from our stand, how we see things, right? And zero trust, it's not so much a feature or a product in itself, but right, an approach or a philosophy, right, that people should keep in mind when thinking about security in general. As the name suggests, right, zero trust, you shouldn't assume any trust in any scenario, right? So, and what we mean by that, right, very often in talking with customers, sometimes, right, for whatever reasons behind, right, we see people end up having one set of trust in a use case where, let's say, certain users, if they're in a branch going to a private application, there is a certain trust is expected there, and that reflects in a certain set of policies. But suddenly, if the user is sitting in a coffee shop and trying to access an application, maybe a public SaaS application, right, the assumed trust, it's totally different. The policies are totally different. And I can go with these scenarios on and on, right? So sure, that's the reality. In Palo Alto terms, right, that's not really the best approach, right? True zero trust, it means, right, you should have the same level of checks, inspections, verifications in place, right, regardless of these use cases. And there are good reasons behind it.
No, well, I really loved your, the first statement that you made about zero trust, in that, it's really not a thing. It's a methodology, it's an approach. And I think that's extremely important. People understand that there's not a ZTNA product. There's not a ZTNA solution. There can be many, and it could actually even include multiple vendors. But it's an entire different mindset, and that is, assume trust, versus zero, as in no trust. And, I think it's an extremely important paradigm shift. And I was actually thinking about something this morning, which I thought was pretty interesting. And, for anyone out there who's managed firewalls, it's extremely common to name the interfaces. We all know what DMZ is, the demilitarized zone. We all know what that is. But the other two, for the outside and the inside is, for the internet, it's untrust, but for the internal, it's trust. That's the name of it. So the internal network is trust, which is defined, as, we're giving a higher level, assumed higher level of access just because of the position of those connections. And, that just speaks to, and that's, if you look at firewalls today, that's that's the name, and so it's still ingrained in the way that we think. And this is literally flipping that completely on its head, where we need to get away from any of that assumed trust. That there's no assumed trust just because you're an employee. There should be no assumed trust there. And it's not anything against the employees. It's all about those devices and the behavior of those people, because, just as we want to protect the devices, we also want to protect the people too. But no longer can we assume, any trust anywhere in our environment, because just as I was mentioning, the inside outside interfaces, well, those are gone today, right? And that's where essentially, where SASE comes from, the secure access service edge. What is the edge of the network, right? That's broken down completely now, because you can have people all over the country, and maybe they connect into a data center. Maybe that's one of 3 or 4, and then they go to another data center, and then they go out to the internet, or they go to a SaaS app, or they're going all over the place, and the source is all over the place. So there ultimately really isn't an edge anymore. There's no longer an edge network. And so, this is the beginnings of the attempts to wrangle all that connectivity, in, and then wrap, the security around it. And one thing I really like to tell people is, that as far as, solutions go, in SASE, some of the highest risk traffic, on the network is the user-based traffic, right? Because there's humans on the other side of it. Systems we can control, devices we can control, we can put policies in place, and continually upgrade them, but to keep a person from clicking on a link and then having that go wrong is, I want to say,
Not sure if it's me or.
Yeah, I think we lost JJ.
All right, I can pick it up, right? I guess he touched on really great points, right? So ZTNA, it's not really a product, but it could be even multiple products. And the reality is that often, right, we like to talk about SASE. We see that's where things are going, right, steadily. But the reality is that any customer today probably it's going to live in a hybrid world, and this is going to be the case for a while. So thinking about zero trust, it's important to consider all these mixed scenarios, right? Sure, you put all these zero trust policies in place, right, for whatever goes through your SASE solution, right? But you need to have the same, ideally, a consistent security posture, right, even for your on-prem deployment. So having this consistency across all use cases and applying the same zero trust principles is key. I guess JJ.
I'm back.
All right.
Apologize, everyone. I'm in a hotel. I'm actually traveling for a SASE event right now. And so, yeah, dealing with travel and issues like that. So sorry about that. I don't know how much, I don't know when I got disconnected. But yeah, the one thing I just wanted to make sure and convey, is, the SASE solutions, I mean, in my opinion, and I go way back in security and cybersec, it is one of the easiest solutions to implement that has one of the highest impacts on the maturity level of a security program available today. You push an agent out to all your devices, so all the desktops, and it can be to the mobile devices also, all of it. In the moment that you do that and you set up a persistent connection, all the traffic in and out of that device is now wrapped up in an extremely robust security solution. So, I'm not going to say it's super easy and there's not a lot of thinking and architecting that goes on the back end, but that's in place, lighting the solution up, turning it on, the go live, and the user experience it's phenomenal. It's extremely, easy, to implement. but it has an extremely high reward because, again, this is some of the highest risk traffic, that exists on the network. And fundamentally, or it's one of the least protected, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, fair point. And what I was highlighting while you had that hiccup, right? I was highlighting that, as you said at the beginning, right, Zero Trust is not really a product, right? Could be even a set of products. And I was saying that, hey, it's very common these days to live in a hybrid world, right? You might have your SASE solution in place, but you'll still have an on-prem deployment base, right? And having a consistent Zero Trust security posture, right? It's also key, and making sure you're in a good spot dealing with the transition phase, right? Maybe eventually at some point it's only going to be SASE. That's what we are seeing, the trend going. But yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I had a customer call come in, and they were transitioning, we'll call it legacy VPN solutions. So they had about 1,000 employees, and their concern was they were going to actually switch over. They were a Palo customer, but they wanted to switch over to Palo's Global Protect, which is if you're not familiar, it's the agent it's the VPN agent for Palo. And they wanted to switch over that, and they had just a lot of concerns and with how to do it. Was at the end of the day, what I was able to uncover is they were concerned about how to troubleshoot. How to know that it's going to be functioning properly. And so we addressed all of that. And then I said, look, let me explain to you Prisma Access, from Palo. And, and this is part of Palo Prisma SASE. It contains two solutions. It contains Prisma SD-WAN. We all kind of have an idea what that is, but also Prisma Access. And Prisma Access is fundamentally the major component behind both the SASE solution and Palo's ZTNA, methodology. And so I mentioned this to them, and I said, look, just as we had hardware servers be virtualized and then go to the cloud, all of that adoption, which everybody's familiar with, and more than likely everybody on this call is already doing it. We are now experiencing the same thing, for security appliances. So now the hardware firewalls are being virtualized and then sent to the cloud. And that's where we are today. And that's where, adoption really is. And so, and that's where, a lot of customers now are actually considering, when it's time to maybe refresh a firewall or such, they're actually looking at, okay, well, is putting it into the cloud, just like we did our servers, is that something that's going to benefit us better? And the answer really to that is absolutely, because not only do you get the best of breed of a solution itself, but you get all of the benefits of cloud adoption. You get the effectively exponential elasticity, redundancy, reliability, resiliency, all of that capacity, and you actually get to turn over, ownership, of the solution itself, so you can be focused on your security policies and things like that, and not with device ownership and management. So, it's really interesting. And so with this customer, I said, look, let me tell you about Prisma Access. And, the two of the main components of it, one is the fact that, they were able to, instead of like having those 1,000 people come into their firewall and then go out, they could, go to the cloud instead. And a couple of huge benefits that you get, I described some of the elasticity and all of that, but two main issues there, they were concerned about performance. Well, I've already mentioned the performance capabilities of the cloud versus non-cloud or on-prem, right? When you're hairpinning into a firewall, you're going in and out of that one circuit. If anything happened with that one circuit, now you have potentially 1,000 people that are directly impacted. Plus you've got additional internet consumption that's happening all the time, even if they aren't even going into that firewall, they have to bounce in and out of it just to get out to the internet. So with the cloud, they were able to go to the cloud and then go straight to the internet without actually having to go into a data center first. So you have the greater potential for performance. But also you have SSL decryption, and if most of the firewalls today, they support that. That's part of a next gen solution is SSL decryption. But a lot of times people don't understand how important that is. They think it's just a feature. It's not just a feature. When you have 40 to 80% of the traffic today being encrypted, if you're not decrypting that traffic and inspecting the content of that traffic against all your security policies, then you're effectively having any rule. I mean, everybody knows about any rules. We got rid of those a long time ago, whatever. No, they're back, and they're back with a vengeance, because it's all encrypted traffic now. And you don't even, it's hard to tell what the traffic is, and you absolutely can't tell what's going on inside of it. And if you try to do that with your own firewall now, more than likely, it's not scaled to be able to even handle the amount of IOPS or, the CPU resources to do that. And it's only going to get worse because all it takes is one website to double the cipher on their keys, on the encryption keys. And now it takes 2, 3, 4 times the amount of resources to decrypt and re-encrypt that single connection. Multiply that by all your users on all your websites, and you're going to crush hardware. You throw that to the cloud, decryption is just there, and it happens. And if there's not enough resources, it spins up more resources. So now not only, are you able to have much better performance capabilities, but you can have full SSL decryption at that same time, which is extremely hard to do traditionally.
Yeah, these are great points that we see coming up a lot as concerns, right? And since you talked about performance, right? Another thing we hear often, right? It's saying, hey, I'm sold on the cloud benefits, right? All the good stuff you mentioned, right? But some people say, hey, but I'm also losing some of the tools and visibility that I have today on-prem, right? If something goes wrong, I'll get the calls, right? I'll have to respond. Everybody will be on my back. How do I debug stuff, right? When the user is in a coffee shop, the security stack is in the cloud, the app is in the cloud, right? So I'm blind pretty much, right? So, and that's a fair concern. And we definitely invested a lot in solving that, right? So we offer also very deep visibility into all this user experience, right? And we are in a very sweet spot, right? We very likely have a presence on the endpoint, right? We have the agent that helps you onboard to Prisma Access. We are in the middle of the traffic, right? Everything, all the traffic that's been inspected, right? We see it. And we also could have a presence on the Prisma SD-WAN as well. So out of these 3 points, looking at real traffic and also doing some synthetic probing, we can get you an awesome view of how the performance looks like, right? And that's important. Again, I'm talking in Palo Alto terms, but that's something that generically, right, any customer looking for a SASE solution should consider, right?
Well, it's absolutely, it's huge. And with this one customer, it came up too, because remember his biggest issue was he was really concerned about the support aspect. It was less about how to make it work and all this. And again, we touched on some of the concerns, but fundamentally his concern really was user experience, which we touched on, but the support impact. What is this going to mean to my support organization? Because there's a limited number of them. He didn't want a new solution to have a detrimental impact to the support resources. And so that's when I brought up where you've already touched on, which is Palo's ADEM solution, which is the autonomous digital experience management. And that's a solution that layers on top of both Prisma Access and Prisma SD-WAN, and it is extraordinary. The first version of this I thought was really, really cool because it functioned primarily as a support tool where the support admins and such could go in and they can see every single connection both in and out of the network, if it's a branch or if it's a user, where they're going. And it's running these synthetic tests all the time to see, even if nothing's connected, what's the quality of that if someone connected, and making sure that everything is green. And if it's not, it bubbles up to the surface very easily for support. And that's great. It gives support that intel. But what I loved was some of the new improvements that came along with self-service, because that's great for support, but and it's awesome for them, but how can we maybe even push some of this down to the user so maybe they never even have to have a support call in the first place? And that's where I got really excited about where ADEM was going, because now it can tell a user, and this is extraordinary, but it can tell a user like their local Wi-Fi has an issue. Like the performance of their local network has an issue, and then maybe they need to switch Wi-Fi, reboot the router, and then things on the local machine, like, your memory consumption is too high, try closing some apps, you're running out of disk space, but it gives the end user some prompts and lets them do some self-service. So it'll even say things like the Wi-Fi you were just at had a better throughput than the one that you are now. Consider relocating, to that network, or try to get closer to the access point. Really, really cool stuff. And when you're talking about thousands upon thousands of users, any percentage of those issues that you can self-service, instead of sending to support, has a dramatic impact, for the entire user experience, right? Because at the end of the day, if you roll a solution out for everyone, and it's in their performance issues or their issues like that, it really helps with adoption. It hurts adoption, right? Because the last thing you want is to put in this great security solution and then not have it perform well, So, this gives you complete insight into the issues. And because most of the time issues are per user, you have issues on per user basis, but they still consume the same amount of support resources that they have to engage, support. So I really, really love what ADEM's going. Again, it's an amazing solution to give support, tons and tons of intelligence if they have to do troubleshooting, but it pushes a whole bunch of stuff, and they keep rolling out new features all the time, but it pushes out a lot of stuff to that end user so they can do their own troubleshooting and resolution, and provides them intelligence, because also it's great to have support, but I don't like calling support. I hate to have to do that. If something could actually pop up and tell me that I've got a problem before I even notice it, that's huge, and I'd love to see that Palo's actually done that.
Yeah, indeed. And on that one, just a small teaser, right? If you like ADEM already, awesome. But there are still new things that will very recently announce, right? So we'll have an event very soon, April 5th, where we'll talk about even more stuff, cool stuff coming. And ADEM, it's one area where we invested. Yeah.
Oh, there's some new things coming out real soon for ADEM.
Yeah, I won't steal the thunder of the. But yeah, a lot of maybe just throwing a buzzword in there, a lot of AI and ML behind the scenes that we added.
Yeah, that's the thing. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of that. And again, that's the more that these solutions roll into the cloud, provides those capabilities, so, it's hard to do AI and ML to extreme capacities, when you're limited to a particular hardware device. It's got constraints, but when it's in the cloud, there are no constraints. You can do whatever. You can roll out all kinds of new features and functionalities with AI and ML, and then push it out to everybody. So yeah, no, that's absolutely great. Look, one thing I wanted to also bring up with regards to this, we've talked about a number of the solutions, but inside, of Prisma Access is for SaaS applications, and so this is, again, tons of companies have now gone to SaaS solutions, and if you don't know what that is, these are all those web applications that exist out there in the cloud that are services, that the company provides to themselves, and to the employees, like Workday for HR, just an example, that's a SaaS solution. So is Office 365, all of these things, and there's hundreds and hundreds and tens of thousands of these things, of course, but each one of those is an app unto itself. And, while rolling the solution in, like, using Prisma Access, it gives you great access, to those applications. There's a whole nother level of it that needs to be considered for zero trust, and that is, SaaS, and another term that people may be familiar with is CASB. So, Tudor, could you hop onto that a little bit and kind of tell elaborate on what that solution is and does?
Absolutely, yeah. And part of Zero Trust, we strongly recommend people considering securing your SaaS applications, right? And also securing your data, right? CASB, very often it's looked more from an angle of securing the SaaS apps, and the data is left a bit aside, right? Being handled by DLP. We look at these two things as a whole, right? Securing your SaaS and securing your data. And double clicking on, let's say, securing SaaS, right? There are multiple angles that you might want to consider, right? And we help you be in a very good spot there. There are apps that you absolutely know are being used in your environment, but 100% you'll have surprises if you dig in and see what apps have been randomly adopted by your users, right? They might have something to do today. They're under time pressure. Your users are smart. They'll find some cool app that they're gonna solve the job quickly for them. But any new app that sits in your environment or goes and generates traffic, it's a risk, right? You don't know what vulnerabilities they have, what data you suddenly are at the risk at exfiltrating. So one thing that we can help you with, it's first showing you, discovering all the apps that are being used in your environment, right? The old saying of you cannot secure what you cannot see. First, we can present you this list of apps and then help you decide and what's risky, what's not, what you want to tolerate maybe in your environment, what you want to block completely on, or maybe restrict certain actions. And that's about talking about apps that you haven't installed or admin yourself, right? But
yeah, they're third party.
Correct, and randomly adopted, right?
Right, but a CASB solution can actually allow you to overlay security controls and policies on those third-party applications, which is extraordinary, and that gets into, and so that's the CASB, so now we're talking about that's just a function of Prisma Access. You can layer that in. So Prisma Access alone is going to give you all that firewalling, the SSL decryption, re-encryption, traffic analysis, all of that, but now even those applications that you allow, you can, inside of those, enforce policy. You can do things like not allow certain file types to be uploaded, say in O365. You can not allow certain content like social security numbers to be uploaded, or more importantly, not to be shared externally. They can be uploaded and they can be shared internally, but they can't be shared externally. Or even if they're shared internally, it's a proper sharing, right? Not to all, but to a limited based on maybe role. So, I mean, it's extraordinary what you can do. And that's, Palo supports tons and tons of those individual applications where you can actually enforce those policies. So beyond just simply having the visibility into, what apps are being used, which is also another way to be able to shut down maybe shadow IT that's going on. Because again, once all the traffic is going through, this solution, you now have 100% visibility, which is impossible to get otherwise, because before, if somebody left the office, well, you have no idea what they're doing. Only when they were behind a company firewall could you see what SaaS applications they were using and have any ability, to potentially control that. So now you have the ability to have 100% visibility, 100% control, and now granular policy control inside of that, with CASB. And then it actually goes to a whole nother level with DLP, the data loss piece of it, which, meshes extremely well, with SaaS and CASB to ensure that, the data is protected and even, while being transmitted, while stored, while shared out. It's just, it's an amazing solution. In thinking that it's something, and again, I hate to say easy, but at the end of the day, it really is. This is not, like, well, I'm not even going to give an example because we could rabbit hole in this, but it's an amazing solution that provides, great connectivity, great user experience, but more importantly, from a security person, it provides the utmost security controls available in the market today, and again, it's Palo, great manufacturer, been around forever. They actually had I love telling people this, and a lot of people don't even know it, but the term SASE, came out by Gartner, I think, sometime in 2019. In 2017, Palo actually had a service called Global Protect Cloud Service, where they will virtualize the firewall, stuck it in the cloud, and you would connect to it. Well, that's SASE. And so they were doing SASE 2 years before the term even existed. A lot of people don't even know that. So, again, really, really slick, great solution. And most of this is built on top of what Palo is known for, and that is their firewalls.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe continuing on that idea, right? You very often, right, or talking to customers when they evaluate the SASE solution, right? People think about, hey, how my visibility is going to be changed, right? We can help with that. How the performance will be, we can definitely help with that, both from a monitoring perspective, but also in the way we build the solution from day zero. But because of all these challenges, right, the security evaluation of a product maybe takes a backseat, right? In the past days, when a customer would evaluate a firewall vendor, right, you'd probably throw a ton of tools, testing tools, measure the maybe the malware catch rate, the security efficacy, etc. Now, probably it's also because it's a bit trickier to do the same thing, right? You don't have the box in your lab to put it on all these tests, but right in Palo, we use the same security services that are well known and they're being used on the firewalls in the cloud as well as a service. And that turns into huge benefits from a security posture point of view, right? That's in the end, it's one of the core reasons, right? You want a security solution, a SASE, right? So making sure you think, hey, how good is it the malware catch rate? How good is the DNS security? Threat prevention, URL, all this stuff, right? And not only one particular area, but looking at the full chain of a real life attack, and how well your vendor it's positioned to protect you against all this stuff in the cloud. It's also an angle that we strongly believe customers should consider. Yeah.
Absolutely. And talking about our customers, can you think of any high level customer use cases? Some great success stories that have occurred for the adoption of Prisma Access?
Absolutely, yeah. I believe we can split these in 3 or 4 buckets, or at least in my mind, right? One use case that we often see, right, are people, right, thinking about replacing their current legacy VPN. The use case that I believe you touched on the same, right? Instead of hairpinning traffic through some VPN solution in your data center, right? Making this as a service in the cloud, right? Distributed, elastic, etc. It's one of the main use cases we see. Another one, it's about securing the internet and SaaS traffic, right? And also very often comes back to maybe an on-prem proxy old solution, right? That it's not meeting the today's expectations in terms of performance, efficacy, scale, etc. Right? So that's another great use case that we can help with. CASB, it's another area where we do a great job, right? Securing the SaaS apps, and also you touched on the data security on the DLP. Again, over there, data comes in different shapes and forms these days, right? It's not only about files. I can send you some sensitive information in a screenshot, in a print screen. So we invested a lot of time in that area. So that's a strong use case for us as well. And maybe the fourth one that we see coming up quite a bit, it's very often, right, the IoT security challenge again takes a backseat, but that's a crucial area, right? And we strongly advise people to consider that. I bet that any customer who doesn't really invested in this area would have huge surprises if once we present an inventory of the IoT devices that you might have in your environment, and pretty sure you won't even know they're there. And is right there are huge risks in your environment, right? Very often old unpatchable OS systems, very often they talk unencrypted protocols, easy to intercept. You cannot put an agent on it, tons of risks, right? So paying attention and making sure you mitigate those risks are key, and we can definitely help on that area as well.
Yeah, no, excellent. So this one is pretty unique and interesting, and certainly compelling. Had another customer, and we were going into this and talking about it, and we actually are exploring the opportunity of when you mentioned IoT. So in this example, there were some appliances like picture an Android-enabled dishwasher or refrigerator or something like that, and we're exploring actually putting the Prisma Access agent actually on those devices and having them connect directly to the cloud for all the telemetry data that in this particular use case the customer required. So not even humans are connecting to this, not just offices, but actually IoT devices effectively themselves, is a use case, for adopting, Prisma Access. So, that one was one of my favorite, more recent, compelling opportunities, to discuss Prisma Access. And so, again, those devices, they could be anywhere. And this gives the ability to not have to worry so much about, how's it going to get out? Where's it going to go? When it does, blah, 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 all those things. It just gets to the cloud. It gets to the cloud, and then everything else, it's going to adopt all of those policies. It's on 24/7, 365, and it's fully protected. So, that was a very interesting new customer use case that came up. But I will say that the majority of these is the legacy VPN. Absolutely. A lot of customers are looking for that. So legacy VPN is a huge use case. And I know we only have a couple minutes left, so I know this is important to everybody. The legacy VPN is huge. If you've got those users all over the place, this is something you need to be looking at. And Palo is the leader in this space. So please look into it. For Prisma SD-WAN. And again, Access and SD-WAN, they both can service offices. So, we kind of have to dig down and see what it is that you want. But remote offices, branches, they can adopt all this, and you can get out of the firewall management space and into security operations and defining policies and responding to issues, and not into management of appliances. So that's another use case. Again, we've touched on a lot of the options. 45 minutes is a small window, to talk about such complex topics as ZTNA and SASE, but I hope we've had an opportunity to address a lot of the topics and concerns and questions, that the people out there and our customers and potential customers have. But at the end of the day, reach out to us, reach out to Palo, but, if any of this has raised up some questions for you, please reach out, contact. We've got all the resources to get your questions answered and help get you along your security adoption and your zero trust adoption path.
Absolutely. Yeah. Happy. We hopefully just scratched the surface, so definitely open to get into far more details on any of the areas. And thanks for the opportunity and the time here.
Absolutely. And we've got a little QR code here, so it's super easy. Go ahead, if you can just scan that, take a picture with your phone or scan it, and you'll have a link for additional information. And Tudor, thanks so much. Great time with you today. I really love the convo back and forth. Love the topic, and we'll certainly be doing this again. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everyone.